to the people when they returned from that captivity? Well, Ezra is pictured as reading the Mosaic Torah, but there are older books than that, and Ezra is not responsible, and I don't even think Ezra was an historical character, if you want my honest opinion. So, I mean, the Wellhausen theory is just, you know, modern German poppycock. It's got some validity in some parts of it, but on the whole, it's total nonsense. And there are old parts of the Bible that are very, very old. For instance, Amos is clearly a person in the 8th century BC, and it's an authentic work, one of the first, if not the first written prophet. You know, people like Nathan, Elijah, Elisha, those prophets didn't write anything, so we don't have any works from them. But we have this Amos in the 8th century BC, 700s, and his is clearly authentic, and he knows all about the Exodus, he knows about the parting of the Red Sea, he knows about things like that. So these stories were already functioning in his time and before. So we know right there that this stuff goes back to 9th, 10th century BC, if not before, because he's already speaking about it like it's totally familiar to him. So, and that's a proof that, if you know what the Wellhausen theory is, that all this stuff was written in Babylon and you know, and during the Babylonian captivity, it just knocks that on its head. You know, it's just, some of it may have been written there, but not all of it by any means. And some of it is really much older than that. So. That's just nonsense, half those theories. You can easily disprove them with a little bit of brain. In any case...
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this goes together, but we may want to add on the vein that you're talking about the ancient writers using maybe the name of someone who...
Yeah, pseudepigraphy.
Yeah, that's not really a negative. I mean, I don't know whether that's
I didn't
necessary.
say it was a negative or positive. I said that it all isn't pseudepigraphy, a lot of it is. Yeah, that is true. She's speaking about ancient writers putting their writings under someone else's name, which is a common practice across the... why would you do that? Well, because these people are known and you're nobody. So if you want people to pay attention to your writings, you put your ideas under a known person's name. Otherwise, you know, you might be like a guy who puts together his own CD here, and there's no agent or distributor or record company willing to pick it up, so you know, it's like a sound lost in the forest, nobody hearing it. You can, like Plato, put your name under, put your writings under Plato's name, you're already well advanced. If you can do better than that, put your name under put your writings under the name of a god. So that's what you're saying. Yes, those are called pseudepigrapha, writings under a false pen name. But usually it was meant pejoratively by Orthodox texts, saying, "Oh, that's pseudepigrapha, ours isn't." Well, I think scholars have more or less determined that just about everything from the ancient world is pseudepigrapha, but not everything, not everything. A lot of it. The Psalms would be pseudepigrapha. Works attributed to Solomon, because he was supposed to be wise, are pseudepigrapha. Getting your ideas, I mean, we have Ecclesiastes attributed to Solomon, I think, because he is the wise man figure. But Ecclesiastes is clearly a work being done under the influence of Greek philosophical thought, because it talks in a very, you know, cynic vein, like everything is vanity, 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 everything under the sun, and so on. It's already being influenced by Greek philosophical thinking of the 5th century and 4th century BC. So Ecclesiastes is probably at the earliest, a 4th century BC work, made to look like a 10th century BC work because it's attributed to Solomon. But there's also books floating around in this time under the name of Enoch, which go even further back than that. There's books under the name of Adam. And again, it's to get attention for Enoch is a mystical figure. Why is he mystical? Because he's one of the primordial sort of super beings that come down genealogically from Adam to Abraham. And they're all lived these huge lifetimes if you look at the Bible in the book of Genesis. But Enoch says was taken up to heaven alive. So Enoch was taken up like Elijah. So that made him a person of special interest to the writers of this period we're talking about, that like to take mystic journeys. And therefore, if they could ascribe what they saw in heaven to Enoch's visions in heaven, then they could get more people to look at them. So they would put their visions under Enoch's name and so on. Yeah, so that's pretty common, not just in Jewish, but around the Mediterranean. Thucydides, the great Greek historian, actually paved the way for historical writing. People like Josephus afterwards. Thucydides gives Pericles his whole funeral oration. Well, he didn't have a tape recorder. Probably wasn't even there. If he was, I'm sure he didn't write it all. He put it down as he either recalled it or it was told to him. It was very proper to put your words into the speaker's mouth in Greek history writing. People don't realize that. They think, oh, these are Jesus' words. And the pretense of the different documents is, yes, we're eyewitnesses, this is what he said. Well, I don't want to be a party pooper, but I can assure you, I bet 2/3 of the things presented there never were said by Jesus. And frankly, anything that resembles what Paul is saying, I would immediately cross off. Because I'm sure that wasn't said by Jesus, because Paul hadn't come into play yet, and we didn't know his, oh, well, then Paul studied Jesus. Well, if Paul studied Jesus, how come he knows all about Jesus that the other apostles don't know about? You know, they're supposed to have been with Jesus his whole lifetime and been his successors, been around him, and then Paul knows all kinds of things that they've never heard of. Well, the only conclusion to a rational person, I know the world is irrational, not that I'm the only rational person, but most people are irrational in the sense that they have a greater loyalty to their ancestors than to serious intellectual investigation, and that's not a bad thing. Ancestor worship is a good thing because we all like to be loyal to our fathers and our grandfathers. Now, our grandfathers and great-grandfathers may not be worthy of our loyalty, and if you met them, they may have been dumbbutts. But you don't want to dishonor, it was good enough for my ancestor, it's good enough for me. I'm not going to dishonor my ancestor. My ancestor went to this church for 10 generations. I'm not going to change. It was good enough for them. There must be something going right in this. Okay, that's fine, and I admire that in every culture. All cultures, that's a human emotion. But that doesn't mean that that's right, that they had it right. It only means that you're going to honor your ancestors. That's all it means, and we all do that. So, you know, the fact that no one else has seen a given thing in your understanding or don't realize that doesn't mean anything. But you can use your intellectual curiosity and vigor and perceptivity and determine. I just say that the reason I know that 2/3 of that stuff wasn't written by Jesus, forgetting what anybody's ancestor says or what any church says, is that the original apostles never heard it. And to my mind, that means that he didn't say it. Of course, the Gospels have an answer for that, don't they? I've already told you that. What's the answer of the Gospels? Oh, they misunderstand the Master's teaching. Peter is presented to be crude as a stumble block.